Poke the Bear is brought to you by the Game Time app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 325, presented by Game Time. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. As we sat down, there are some rumors on Twitter, nothing confirmed yet, little rumors that Mike Sullivan could become the next head coach of the New York Rangers, which again is not a huge surprise. There was a tweet from Vince Z. Mercogliano, who does cover the Rangers down there. That's an awesome name.
Yes.
Said the New York Rangers haven't confirmed or announced anything officially yet, but it sounds like things are getting close and very much trending toward Mike Sullivan becoming the 38th head coach in franchise history. So not a shock. Like, I'm not surprised by that. We talked about it Monday. The Bruins made a lot of sense, but the Rangers probably made a little bit more sense, and it seems like we were right in that estimation.
Yeah, and as you said, not much of a surprise. He's clearly has ties to Chris Drury, both BU guys. I think it was reported on The Athletic that Chris Drury had tried to hire him twice before, back when there was other times where there was uncertainty as to whether or not Mike Sullivan was going to still be with Pittsburgh. Clearly is not now, so made a lot of sense. And again, I think the ties to Boston, and I think the appeal from the Bruins side especially, makes a lot of sense, right? Familiar coach, well regarded across league circles, guy that is a commanding kind of coaching candidate, a guy that's won 2 cups already. Makes a lot of sense, checks a lot of boxes. But I do think if you're Mike Sullivan, a team like the Rangers, which you still have ties to, he was John Tortorella's assistant with New York way back when, big market, a team that, they also, like the Bruins, did make the playoffs. You can make the case maybe are better equipped at a bounce back season. A lot of shit went wrong for them last year. So
yeah.
I do think, like, if you're Mike Sullivan, you're weighing your options. As appealing as it might be to come back home, go back, coach the Bruins, obviously the ties with Charlie McAvoy and all those things, it does feel like New York offers, the same appeal, right? Big market, competitive team, historic franchise, without it being as close-knit, as tied in. I think that it makes a lot of sense if that rumor ends up being true, whether that gets announced today as we're recording on Thursday or later on this week. That's, I think, how we both viewed as being the most likely destination for Mike Sullivan. So no real surprise there. But for the Bruins, it does take away what you assume was probably one of the top candidates, especially if you're looking at an established guy, if they were looking at that kind of pool of candidates.
Yeah, I think that's what's unfortunate is I think a lot of people would have liked him at the top. Literally took 3 days. Literally on the market for 3 days. But never fear, Bruins fans. There are more coaches out there. Another coach added to the mix to potentially get hired. Rick Tocchet announced he would not return with the Vancouver Canucks this week. That seems like a shit show up there in Vancouver. Every time Jim Rutherford speaks, there's something new that you're like, holy crap! Like where's? Hey, hopefully Quinn returns my phone calls. What's up with that?
I will say, as much as I think Bruins fans and probably the media are always like, oh man, Don Sweeney doesn't give us all that much. It's a lot of, you listen to the quotes and you're like, I don't know how much I can actually glean from what he said. There is kind of the opposite, right? That maybe it's good for us if Don Sweeney was like, yeah, we're calling Mitch Marner's agents already, which you can't do that. But if Don Sweeney was as transparent as Jim Rutherford is, I don't think it would actually be that great, right? Because you have Bruins fans freaking out over more. If Don Sweeney last year was Jeremy Swayman's not returning our calls and shit's getting weird, guys. Bruins fans would not like that either. Bruins fans, well known as a really stable bunch, doesn't overreact to anything. And again, not to say that Vancouver is this quiet market, no, they've got a pretty passionate fan base and they have been freaking out, especially when it comes to Quinn Hughes. So it's almost like you need something in the middle, maybe a little bit more transparency, but not show your entire playbook as to what you're thinking of this offseason.
Stream of consciousness is not always the best PR move.
Yeah.
And again, Tocchet leaves there, was a phenomenal coach last year with Vancouver, got them into the playoffs as a favorite. And this year things just, went south in a lot of different directions. You had the JT Miller, Elias Pettersson fiasco. Then you have, what's Quinn Hughes' future and that deal. Still a good young team, but Tocchet's now on the market. Now I would be curious with someone like Tocchet, who was one of the first analysts on TNT, was really good on that panel. You wonder if he says, I'm going to take a break for a year, go back to doing that, my once or twice a week hits in Atlanta. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that would point in either direction for him. Obviously, he's being mentioned as someone who will be in the mix for different coaching jobs. But the big question is, would you want him in Boston? Would you want Rick Tocchet in Boston? He did play 2 seasons with the Bruins in 95 and 96. Would you want him?
Well, he does check off the boxes, right? As you said, played here, has NHL experience, has had some success as a head coach, right? When you look at last
you
year.
are the head coach. There you go, Rick.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to go through the list of what the Bruins are prioritizing, and he does check some of those boxes. It's almost like I don't know, like I think Rick Tocchet probably has more upside in terms of like a long term, like can coach beyond the 1 year bump and not flame out. Like that's why I'm very hesitant if I'm the Bruins of looking at a guy like Laviolette or Tortorella or Gallant, all these guys that, again, like next year would not surprise me if the Bruins make a push for the playoffs. And then if they do or don't, like things kind of unravel. Like we've seen that before. Tocchet, I think, has maybe a little bit of a higher upside, but I don't know about you, Evan. I still feel like unless like Mike Sullivan was the guy coming here, because I think he's just got a presence about him, a resume, a body of work as a head coach that I think if you're looking for kind of a new chapter and a guy to lead the charge moving forward, a guy like Mike Sullivan makes a lot of sense. If he's not out there, then I'd rather you shift gears and try to find the next up and coming coach, because I don't think like Rick Tocchet is a bad coach, right? But I just don't know if I'd rather you try to find someone that's younger and maybe more unproven, but can move the needle and raise your ceiling more. Not just for next year. I think the important thing is next year, I think we're all expecting this team to take a step forward in some capacity, but what's it look like 2-3 years down the road? Like, is it if you're able to find a younger coach or a coach that hasn't had a shot yet and he's growing as this team continues to take steps forward, I think that's really promising. I don't know if you're bringing back a retread coach, whether that falls in line with that vision. Because again, it also comes back to like, this is going to be, regardless of what the Bruins top brass say about how many head coaching searches they've conducted. I know that was a sticking point with them on the press conference last week, which was very
Has
odd.
Don called Terry yet? Has Don been like, yep,
I don't know.
We just interviewed Mike Sullivan.
I haven't heard anything. But listen, I don't think they're going to have a lot more opportunities, you would think, to hire more head coaches. So if you are trying to find that next coaching candidate, I do think you have to look for someone that ideally helps you out now, but also a guy that you're comfortable with rolling for the next 3-4, hopefully longer years after that. Someone that is part of that next generation. And it's a lot tougher to find that next Carberry, the next, you hope, John Cooper, right? Like a guy that steps into that role. There's a lot more risk involved with it, but I think the upside and what you need to do as an organization is try to identify that coach, as opposed to like, oh, well, Tortorella and these guys, we know what we're going to get next year, and then we figure out from there. Like, no more kicking the can down the road. Try to do the legwork and try to find that next coach that you think can raise the ceiling of this team when we get to 26, 27, 28.
Completely. Now, here's my thing. I do wonder, and I do think, Don Sweeney always harps on this. I'm going to do what's best for the organization. I'm always going to act in the best interest long term, things like that. We keep going back to him potentially GMing for his job this year. Playoffs matter to this ownership group, whether they say it does or whether they say it doesn't. It absolutely does. I do wonder if they do go for a Tocchet or a Gallant in terms of, let's get a quick boost. I'm not saying Sweeney would do this, but in terms of, I need a contract extension and making the playoffs would help. And the reality is someone like Tocchet or Gallant or one of those coaches does give you a better chance historically to make the playoffs next year, not success-wise. And I don't want that. I'm not saying that they should do that. I just think it's an interesting thing when you have a GM who is on the 1 year left on his deal, doesn't have an extension, and you're letting him hire a head coach. I think that's an important thing to figure out. Like, I agree. We're in lockstep on this. You need to find, and it's hard to do, the next Spencer Carberry. You need to find the guy who's going to be a head coach here. Again, very hard to do because the average head coach right now lasts 2.3 years in their job, which is insanity. But you need to find someone who's going to grow with this roster, who's going to be here 5 years from now. And that's a really hard thing to do because there's so many ups and downs, and it's an unforgivable league, and this ownership group and this front office has had no problem letting the coach, be kicked to the curb. But I do wonder if Sweeney in his position says, well, I want to make the playoffs. Like Rick Tocchet is sort of the middle ground between, he's not a coaching lifer like Laviolette, who's been everywhere, but he's not, a young, unproven guy who this is sort of their first head coaching job or first NHL head coaching job. This is sort of in the middle. And you look at Tocchet, 61 years old. He was the head coach of the Lightning in 08-09 and 09-10. Didn't really do much there. Then he was with Arizona from 2017 through 2021. And then he took over in Vancouver in midway through 22-23. Good first half year. Great year last year. And then tough one this year, although he was still 38-30 in 14, has a .490 winning percentage. So I just wonder about that with this front office, if they look for sort of a, get back to the playoffs type thing, even though they've made it clear that's not what they're looking for.
Yeah, it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Because I am not Charlie Jacobs. I'm not the one that is viewing like how they are viewing this retool, whatever it may be, but it's almost like, all right, if you're that desperate and you're just trying to make the playoffs next year and you hire Laviolette and, they go to the first round and lose, but at the end of the season press conference next year, you can be like, oh, we're back in the playoffs. And we feel like we're building our game. And Don Sweeney, look what he did this offseason. We're on the right track. And here's a new contract for him. And then the second year under Laviolette, it blows up and half the team it's like I hate my life, which is pretty much what the Rangers were. They had 6 or 7 guys out front to the media being like, I hate my life here, I don't like playing hockey anymore. Go down the list of all the shit, not hyperbole, between Dahan and Kakko and Hedel, and
the Dahan stuff was wild.
Yeah, it was.
Molly Walker tweets out something he says on the way out to the ice. Then he gets back and he's like, "Whoa!" So
it was a mess. So it's almost like if you're the Bruins ownership, would you listen? You'll take going to the playoffs, but then how does the optics look if then you take a huge step back and you become a clown show 2 out of 3 years, and it feels like any progress you made isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's regressing. What do you view that as? Maybe your 1 year you back in the playoff picture was an outlier and you're not showing the upward growth. I'd rather, again, from my perspective, is you hire a young coach, you build up your game and your roster, you develop younger players. If you make the playoffs, that's great. If you're in the mix and playing meaningful hockey in March and April, but you come up just short, but hey, Denoye looks great, and he played great down that final stretch of the season. And we've got these other younger players, and the young coach we hired feels like he's really kind of has a command of the room, and we're building something. And Don Sweeney, again, from what he did at the trade deadline the previous year to what he's doing now, they're on the right track. Even if we came up just short for the playoffs, I think you can sell that to a fan base and to ownership more than hey, no, we're just going to make the playoffs. Sorry, Laviolette, we're good. And then you look like a clown the next year when it all unravels. Again, I'm not the Jacobs. I don't know how they view those things, but I think if, what Charlie Jacobs said last week, where it's we think we can make the playoffs, but also it's not an outright mandate. If we're taking steps forward and we're building and setting the foundation for a winning team in 26, 27, 28 moving forward, I think that has to be the priority for the Bruins. So how do you build a sustainable contending team? And I think it's by finding that young coach and trying to be patient with it.
100%. I mean, you look at Cam Neely last week. We have bigger goals than just making the playoffs. We have to build a team that is going to compete for Stanley Cups. You don't do that with, Laviolette or a Tortorella right now. Like you don't. But I bring that up with Sweeney because he's on a 1-year deal. Yeah. So like that stuff can factor in. That can kind of get in the mix. I agree with you though. I don't think Tocchet's the guy. I imagine they will do their due diligence on him, but I can't imagine that that he's going to be the guy that they ultimately should choose. Before we get into looking around the NHL, looking at Providence, who begins a big playoff series on Friday night, our friends over at Game Time, Connor, it's May. It's spring. Spring has sprung. You can hear it in my voice because my nose is stuffy from allergies, but that does not stop me from going outside and enjoying the beautiful weather. And what better time to go than to go to a baseball game? It's not too hot either. This isn't sweltering heat. It's like the best time of year. So go to a baseball game or basketball playoffs. Celtics, hell of a time to go to. Hell of a thing to go to this time of year. So they have last minute deals. Connor, I love these. I'm not the best with planning things. Not the best scheduler. Sometimes it's last minute. Sometimes the weather's really nice outside. And I'm like, I'm going to go to the game tonight. That's what last minute deals help me do at Game Time. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. There's also zone deals. You save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. You got all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Get seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And there's Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So, take guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Connor, what time is it?
A game time.
It is game time. It is, in fact, game time. So looking across the NHL playoffs have been good. I think the West has been definitely better, although there is one series in the East. Toronto and Ottawa is getting hella interesting. Could the Leafs blow a 3-1 lead, which would just be like
it's insane. That team is. I actually don't clip this. I kind of feel bad for Toronto fans because what the hell is going on? What is happening? Again, we're recording this before the game tonight, so we'll see if they seal a deal. But Jesus, guys!
What are they 1-13 in clinching games or something like that?
And then after the game, it was Chris Tana was like, "Yeah, we're still up 3-2. We're feeling good." I'm like, "You've got the weight of a lot going on, Chris. I know you weren't there for that long, but Jesus, it is something else. Their inability to close out these games because even what was it, 2019? Was it that they were down in a 3-2 the Bruins? And there's been multiple times where the Bruins have had to go into Toronto in a game 6, win or go home, and cut things out and then win game 7. We've seen this time and time again. You would think that this year the Bruins aren't in the playoffs. They've got a clear path against a Ottawa team that did not look ready at all in games 1 and 2, right? Looked like they did not know what the hell they were doing there, and look where they are now. So it is something. Maybe I rescind that I feel bad for Toronto fans, but Jesus, man, that's something.
Rooting for that team seems legitimately awful. Then you have Florida beats Tampa 4-1. I expected Tampa to put up so much more of a fight in the series than they did. I mean, I saw there was a picture of someone said Andrei Vasilevsky in a playoff series that isn't impacted by COVID, and it was the picture of Dave Portnoy and the goalie, the goalie stuff. But that was hysterical. The good news there, although the Panthers, people around here hate the Panthers, Brad Marchand gets to the second round, and he's been playing in all their games. So isn't it if they make the conference final, that pick turns into a first?
They need to win 2 rounds. They have to get into the Eastern Conference Finals, the Florida Panthers, and he has to play 50% of his games. And then I'm not sure if I believe it's 27, but I saw somewhere else that said it could be a 28 instead. So I'm not sure exactly the year, but yeah, it's getting to the conference finals and Marchand 50% of his games, which barring injury is going to happen. So yeah, they're halfway there now in terms of getting past that Tampa team. And Florida, that series especially is what we expect, right? In terms of some questionable plays, some questionable hits, some injuries that happen to always. It's like the hot dog from Tim. I think you should leave. Like, we're all trying to figure out who did this. As like everyone that Florida plays just gets the shit kicked out of them. But that team is terrifying, man. Like they are so good in terms of just like, like the talent they have, the skill, the ability to kind of, the roster is built for playoff hockey, but like they suffocated a very good Tampa Bay team, especially offensively. They couldn't do anything. I think Tampa averaged 22 shots on goal per game. Kucherov did jack shit. Kucherov was not my top 3 for the hot trophy ballot. And I won't reveal the entire list, but there are a lot more deserving guys, and he did nothing. After game 1. So Florida is a very, I don't even know if polarizing is the right word, because a lot of teams just hate Florida, but they are a good team, man. They just play. They know what they need to do. They can kind of adjust the way they need to play to different opponents in the playoffs. Like they just know how to win, man. And you have to, I think, admire that in some respects for just how they're able to execute in these moments on this stage against a lot of really, really good teams. So again, Bruins get that much closer to that first round pick.
Don Sweeney does it again.
Sure.
Yeah, I expected more out of Tampa. I just did.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for the bill to come due with the Panthers, where it's like, 2 long runs to the cup the last 2 years. I thought Tampa might do it. Not at all. Then you have Washington and Montreal. Washington wins that series 4-1. Felt like maybe Montreal would put up a little more of a fight in that series. They certainly, I thought, did pretty well for themselves, given it's a pretty young team. This core has not really been in the playoffs. Washington runs over them. They will face Carolina in the next round. That was also not a surprising series. I think we all kind of expected Carolina to roll.
Corpse of the Devils. Yeah.
Over New Jersey. And then out west, Winnipeg up 3-2 on St. Louis. Winnipeg, oh my God. Like, playing outside of Winnipeg is just so bad for them. I'm very curious to see what they're able to do and if they're able to close this out in game 6. Things are getting heated, though. Old Bruins coach Jim Montgomery and Rick Arneal with the Jets getting into it. Is it Rick or Scott? I forget. Scott Arneal getting into it. It's I'm thinking of Rick Ankiel. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yes, noted fireball throwing starter until like he literally couldn't throw across the plate, but
couldn't do it. Got the yips. But if the Blues do pull this out, do we think differently about Jim Montgomery?
No. I mean, at least it's good to see that he's calling out the other team, unlike when Marchand gets sucker punched in the face and he compliments the refs. Way to show it, Jim. So no, I'm not changing my opinion really. I think I've made my opinions pretty clear, and you can disagree with them, I guess. But we'll see what the Blues do. Again, he's in a great spot. He's got a team that's better suited to the way he wants to coach, and I'm sure they're going to fight back like hell in Game 6. It's actually a pretty fun series, but no, I'm not changing my opinion at all.
No, yeah, I was shocked to hear him say the stuff he did after the game on Wednesday night. It's like, where was this? Where was this for 2 years?
I thought the refs do a great job.
What a fun hockey game!
You.
What a fun hockey game tonight. And then you have Dallas up 3-2 on Colorado. That's probably been the best series so far in terms of just how close those two teams are. And then you go down into the Pacific. Vegas is up 3-2 on Minnesota. And then
that's a good series.
It is a good series. And then you have LA and Edmonton. Edmonton down 2-0, comes back, makes it 3-2. LA, man, can't get past the Oilers at all.
And they've had so many times. It was like Byfield could have iced that game. If like, I for one don't really like the Oilers that much because, like, listen, you get to watch McDavid and Draisaitl every single, like, they are unbelievable. But it's such like a, I don't know the right way to put it. It's such like an ill-structured team where it's just like, all right, we're just going to rely on these cheat codes. And like, you got guys like Bouchard as well, but it's like they can like flip the script and can kind of just cheat code their way through these games. And like, again, that's what makes them so good is when you have generational talent to do it. But it's like, man, if you're the Kings, like you just can't take your foot off the gas against a team like that, where like if you play your game and play to your structure and just throw everything you can at limiting those two guys, easier said than done. I'm aware of that, but you can't give them any opportunity to claw back into this series. And sure enough, that's what they did. And that was a Kings team. Like the way they were playing, like, especially at home, how good they are defensively, that it felt like this was the year they were going to break through, especially against an Oilers team that's been kind of up and down this year with injuries and inconsistency, and they just can't get out of their own way. So, like, again, the Oilers, like the way they play, as frustrating as it is, they will find ways to make games competitive and claw back when you've got McDavid and Draisaitl. That is not a surprise at all. But, like, shame on the Kings for not going for the throat, going for the head, and taking them out when they had the chance. It's, if you're the Kings, you're like, what more do we need to do other than avoid playing Edmonton in the first round again?
Yeah, no, that's been insane. Locally, though, there will be some playoffs. Not the Boston Bruins, but Providence. Providence advanced past Springfield. They came back from a 1-0 series. It was a best of 3. And now they face the Charlotte Checkers. Charlotte Checkers, that series begins Friday. I know you were down at practice on Thursday. I think this is a big playoff series for a lot of the younger guys. Matt Patra, Georgi Markulov. I look on D2, like someone like Michael Callahan, enhance his game, prove himself in some big moments, potentially be a 7th defenseman candidate for next season. What did you see down there, and what are you looking forward to over these next couple games?
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said, Evan. It's kind of what Ryan Mougenel, the head coach of Providence, echoed, is like, for this team, yes, like the immediate goal is, to win a Calder Cup, and, you have something to strive for, but it's also, as you're trying to, develop that next wave of talent, having guys go through a long playoff run to deal with the intensity of playoff hockey, the competition, the added physicality, it's going to, do wonders for these guys. As, again, the Stanley Cup playoffs are out of the picture. The Bruins aren't in it. You can't look ahead to that, but you can look at playing meaningful hockey down the stretch here, continuing to build your game at the highest level down in the AHL, and then use that as a bit of a springboard moving forward. So, and again, as much as Providence's and Boston's pipeline isn't still up to par with a lot of other teams across the league, even if it is getting better, you look at Lysell and like the fact that he ended his stint with the Bruins on a high note and how he can build that. Potter's been a point per game guy there. He's playing well. Fraser Minton, right? Like, there's a lot of guys on this Providence team that going into camp next year have a pretty legitimate shot. We'll see what the Bruins do in terms of building up their roster. But if a lot of these guys end this season on a high note, whether it's winning the Calder Cup or playing another round or two, continuing to play well, that's going to be key for this team moving forward. And it's not even counting, some of these other players like Dan Sloshmelis is gone from like a solid like 200-foot player, I guess is how you would describe his game at UMass. Now he's just been like a force with Providence, playing on the wing right now, but playing with Matt Patra, and they've had a lot of good chemistry there. And I think you look at just what the Bruins are trying to get out of this playoff run. If these kinds of guys can get their feet wet and get some playoff experience and put up some numbers, it just makes them that much, more confident going into next year, where, again, there should be reps up for grabs for the Bruins.
Yeah, I think for fans watching, it gives you a good idea. Like, we talk about this a lot of who's going to be the 3C next year. Is it Patra? Is it going to be Minton? This is the perfect opportunity for them to showcase that they can do that at the next level. And again, like, it's not the NHL, but it's still fantastic hockey. And it's playoff hockey. It's treated the exact same. So it's a big deal. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do against Charlotte. And if they can make a push, Calder Cup playoffs go long. Like, it's a long way until they even get to the Cup. So this will be, hopefully they can, get through this series and just continue to rack up playoff games under their belt. Another thing, Monday night, not really playoff related, but maybe future playoff related, the NHL Draft Lottery. NHL Draft Lottery is Monday night. We finally we'll do like a mock draft. We're like, all right, well, with the 5th pick, we think the Bruins are going to select this one. Here are their odds. To pick first, they have an 8.5% chance. Second is 8.6% chance. Third, 0.3% chance.
Yeah, they're not getting that.
I would expect they don't get the 3rd pick. And I know they will not be picking 4th. They have a 0% chance at picking 4th. 5th, 24.5%, 6th, 44%, and 7th is 14.2%. In other words, they will likely pick somewhere from 5 to 7, which It's kind of annoying considering like end of the year they were like 3, flirting with 4, and they're probably going to be 5, 6, or 7. I do wonder, is there any chance? Like there obviously is an 8.5% chance, but like could they sneak into that top spot? Could they sneak in at number 2? I mean, they basically have they have a 17% chance of picking first. I know I'm not a math guy, but I just did that quick addition. That's not nothing. Like that's kind of legitimate. So wouldn't shock me if they got a top 2 pick. Certainly they would love that. That would help them. I think everybody would love that. But I would assume they're probably going to be more in that 5, 6 range.
Yeah, I think that's probably the more reasonable approach you should have. And again, like almost a 18% chance of getting 1 or 2 is great. You imagine that's Michael Misa, who's the best forward on the board. And that honestly makes things just a lot easier, right? In terms of like, all right, well, like we know who we're going to get. Like best case scenario, probably for the Bruins in terms of limiting the discourse is probably 2. And then like, you just know they're probably going to take Misa because Matthew Schaefer, the defenseman's probably going first, I'd imagine. What would be really bad, not really bad, but what would throw things for a loop is if Misa goes first. And then you're like, oh man, we got to take Matthew Schaefer, I guess. Which, like, again, he's a very good player. We've had this conversation on Bruins Beat. He is a legit top pairing power play quarterback type of player would really help out this team, but not the most pressing need, right?
Well, the worst case scenario would be you pick Misa first, Schaefer goes second, and Schaefer turns into Nick Lidstrom 2.0.
Right.
Misa isn't much of anything.
Yeah, or like even if he's a 65-point guy, top 6 center, he's not a Hall of Famer, right? Like
Nico Hischier going before Cale Makar.
Right. So you have to weigh that, right? I guess also the worst case scenario is like them picking 7th. Worst case scenario is not, oh man, we took the number 2 pick. But I think even if they fall into more of what we expect is their pick range, right, of 5 or 6, I think you also hit the point now where you look at a lot of these prospects, and there's different tiers, right? There's Schaefer, there's Misa, and then you kind of have this collection of a lot of really skilled centermen. Where the Bruins are on this draft order, even at like 7, which you hope is not the scenario that plays out, they're going to have an opportunity to pick a really good player, I think. Like even if it's, picks 3 and 4, whoever gets taken there, that still offers a chance for one of maybe James Hagens, maybe he drops. Maybe it's Anton Frundell, who's been putting up great numbers in Sweden. Maybe it's Caleb Desnoyers, who's viewed as like a not lock, but a very sure bet to be a second line 60-point two-way centerman, which again isn't maybe a franchise superstar, but that is a franchise stalwart of knowing you have a guy like that in your top 6. And even like if it's a guy like O'Brien who's putting up a lot of numbers in the OHL, barring you like going to 7 and like the board really shifting, and even that I think is probably a bit of a being dramatic on my end, I think you're going to have a chance to bring in a really, at the very least, intriguing player, if not an outright very skilled player that maybe he's not going to help you next year, but adding them to your pipeline is going to help you out tremendously. And I think that should be the main takeaway is however the lottery kind of plays out, the Bruins are going to have a chance to bring in a really, really talented young player in the next couple of months.
I was just talking about this with Scott Mclofflin on Bruins Beat, and he made an interesting point about how, we always assume that it's going to be centers taken in the top 5. And it's, if the Bruins are picking 6th or even 5th, that like Hagens and Frundell will definitely be gone. We don't know that. Like Martone could easily be taken by one of those teams. Eklund, you could take a defenseman if they want to go kind of lower in the draft. We don't know. Like it, we're just going off of rankings. We're going off our own views of it. We're going off central scouting. Every team has their own board. And I think the one clear thing about this draft is after Misa and Schaefer, it's kind of open. Like, there's a team, if San Jose doesn't get the number 1 pick, which they're projected to get, but if they're at pick 3, let's say, and Schaefer's off the board, well, they don't need a center. They don't need to get Frundell or Hagens. That would be insane. So maybe they go Martone, and that pushes it down even more.
Right.
And so, like, you have all these different scenarios that they could undergo, that even if they did pick 7th, maybe Desnoyers is still there. Maybe Frundell is somehow still there. I would
think it
rather
was
them not
even
pick seventh,
yeah
but
sorry. Like I think even not to shout out another rival Bruins podcast, but I think Scott Mclofflin and the Skate Pod people who do great work, by the way,
yes.
over at WEI. They did like a mock draft, I want to say, where
Oh,
they
I
did like
saw that.
tankathon and all the thing, and it was Hagens fell to them, and like you looked at the way that the teams in front of them, how they view things, how they need different types of players, and I think Martone went top 4. And again, a guy like Hagens falls to the Bruins, which again, there's a lot to like about his game. I know people, I think just because he didn't put up 60 points or because he went to BC, maybe that's just my critique of him. You look at the talent is still there. Like, I know if like Hagens fell to the Bruins and they took him, I know like what the discourse would be on the afternoon drive of like, oh, another local kid. Oh, look at his numbers. He wasn't even like, he was barely a point per game guy.
He's small.
Watch, like, again, he's not like my favorite prospect in this entire group, but like the skill level is there. Like, watch how good his skating is NHL, not even quality. It is elite NHL talent in terms of his skating right now. And as he continues to get stronger, like he has the potential to be a 80, 90 point top line center. There's no question about that. And if he's available, you take him. You take Jimmy Hagens.
Every time. Jimmy. We love Jimmy. I think that's the big thing is like if Hagens falls to you at 5 and you opt not to take him, that's what I don't understand. And I agree with you in that like he has all the top line center capabilities. I know he's smaller. I know he's, he needs to get to the interior a little bit more. I completely agree. But his ability to create, his vision, his skating, his hands, like you don't pass that up. I mean, that is like that's world class type stuff. And a lot of the other stuff is fixable. And I think he's due for a much bigger year in college this upcoming year. Like I think that, he's going to probably have a really strong second year and it's gonna be like, all right, well, he's in a much better spot.
I could see actually happening is like Hagens drops to like 5 and the Bruins take like, maybe it's like, I don't know, Desnoyers or one of these, or like O'Brien. Because I think Desnoyers, however you say his name, I know I'm probably butchering it, but like him or Frundell, who I really like them as well. But like, let's say like, Hagens is available at 5 and the Bruins take like O'Brien instead. Because they like, he's a little bit of a bigger player. Would not surprise me if Hagens like goes to BC as a sophomore and puts up 65 points.
Oh,
it makes an immediate impact with the team that picks him in March, right? Like, would not surprise me. And again, you're talking to a guy who's, those BC guys, I can find some faults. Like you want to play in the city, but you want to take the commuter rail out to your campus. Like that's kind of weird, but like, no one's perfect. So
teach their own.
But I could see that scenario playing out knowing like, damn. And it's not to say that like O'Brien and these guys would be bums, right? Or wouldn't help. But like if a guy like Hagens is available at 5, you take him. Like the talent, you can't watch the tape,
I can't agree more on that. And I agree it would be very on brand for that to happen to the Bruins. The other thing that you have to consider is let's say they pick 7th. Let's say they get the 7th pick. And let's say ahead of them. Exactly. We got to clip that. Someone's got to clip that. Fuck. The other day because it was just so perfectly timed. Let's say it is 7th. And let's say the teams above them pick a bunch of centers. And Porter Martone's sitting there at 7. You take Porter Martone. Like that's a high-end player. Most people would agree a consensus top 5 player. So there is different ways that this draft could go. I think we would all rather than be in the top 2. But again, 5 intrigues me. If you're at 5, like I think you have a chance at Frundell, which is awesome. That's my top
really
center.
Like Frundell.
It's my top center
of that tier. Yeah, he's really good.
He's really good. He's doing it, and he's doing it against older competition. He's doing it against men. And I'm not saying that I talked about this with Scott. The Q is not bad. It's not, but it is junior. It's junior hockey. Over there in Sweden, it's not. That's their second. I think that's their second ranked men's league, second league professional league, second ranked. Second rate sounds terrible. Second ranked.
This bootleg ass league he's in.
he's playing with me on Wednesday mornings.
Yes,
but no, Frundell, and then you have Hagens and Desnoyers. So like I think if you're at 5, you probably have a chance at Frindell or Hagens, which I think is huge. You're at 6, you're probably more in the Desnoyers category if he's not already gone. And then 7, it's really who's still left and who do you like. And then you get into, is it Jake O'Brien? Is it Roger McQueen? Is Martone still available? Is it Eklund? So we'll see. We'll see how things go on Monday night. Maybe they get the first overall pick. Maybe we're sitting here next week going, all right, everybody, who is it, Misa or Schaefer? We'll be having that debate for like 2 straight months. But you know what? I wouldn't hate it. Get to break their games down, everything. So that's Poke the Bear. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at theglobeandboston.com. We're going to have you covered every step of the way this Bruins off season. Obviously, I will be in Providence on Friday, so I'll be covering a few of those games, seeing how the Bruins prospects are doing, looking at free agency, trades, offer sheets, the draft, everything. It's going to be a very busy but very fun summer, I think, for the Bruins. So we'll have you covered every step of the way. If you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, I don't really care. You can follow me at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That is Poke the Bear. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. You Poke the Bear listeners, have a great rest of your week.